Did you not have a near-death experience earlier?
I did in London about 30 years ago. And I was pronounced dead 4 times. Once I didn't breathe and I had no vitals for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And that was the time that I had the near-death experience.
I want you to tell us what that was like, but I was asking about this experience with the pneumonia because I was wondering if the near-death experience makes you not be afraid of dying.
Oh, absolutely. I know I wasn't afraid because of that. It was when I had the out-of-body experience and could see the people working around me, I tried desperately to move an eyelid, a finger, something to let them know that I could hear them saying, well, I think we've lost her. And I was saying to myself, no, you haven't. I'm here. But I was like out. And then I went into this, I sort of floated into this tunnel. And there were other figures that I recognized, and this welcoming, like sun, white sun, and warmth, and like being in liquid mercury. It was like being weightless.
Wow.
And Mike Todd was there. And I wanted to be with him more than anything in the world. He'd been dead about 3 years, and I was still mourning him. And he said, no, baby, you can't. It's not your time. You can't come over. You have to fight to go back. You have to fight to go back. And I said, but I want to be with you. And he said, you can't now. I'll be here. You have to fight to go back. And evidently, while this was happening, my hands were like in fists. And they tried to unclench my hands. I was reported dead. It was on the bulletin board. I even read my own obituaries.
Really? How?
It was in all the papers.
Oh, my God.
That I had died. I've never had such good reviews.
And so how do you know it wasn't a dream? How do you know that?
I don't. And I didn't talk about it for years. When I came out of it, when I came out of the whatever it was, I mean, I wasn't breathing. There were about 11 doctors in the room, and I told them all what I'd experienced because I felt like I had to tell somebody so I wouldn't later on think I was crazy. And then I thought, that does sound so crazy, I don't think I'm going to tell anybody else. And for years, I didn't say anything. And then I started reading about other people having the same kind of experience. They all vary slightly. Then I thought, there's got to be something to it. There are just too many people who've gone through it. I know I did. Just because I haven't talked about it doesn't mean that it wasn't as real as the day it happened.
So tell us, I'd read that you had one of those near-death experiences. Is that true?
It is.
It is true.
It is true.
Tell me.
Well, I had that whole white light thing.
You did? At what point?
After the MRI, I was unconscious in the tube, and then when I came out of it and they talked to me, and then I kind of had that thing where it's sort of like passing out, except you pass kind of up.
You pass up?
Sort of, and you have this big blow-up thing, and you know, I don't know how to.
I don't know. I never had it, so I don't know. I'm waiting on you to tell
Anybody here have it? I don't know.
So
it's been a while now, so it's it's not as fresh for me. But it's just a lot of white light, and you see people that have passed on, and they talk to you, and then you pop right back into your body, and you're awake. And you have I had an incredible sense of well-being, in a sense that it's just so near. It's not a far away or scary thing. And that
you mean death?
Death.
Really?
That it's a very near and
like
safe.
It's a breath away.
Yes, it's just right there.
Really?
And that it's
That's interesting. I've
safe
never heard it described that way.
And loving and gentle.
Really?
And okay. and
Really?
there's nothing to be afraid of, and that it's a beautiful, loving, gentle, good. I felt so safe and so okay that all the stuff that I was terrorized when the doctor was standing there with his hand on my head, giving me that horrible look, like, oh.
Oh, you're a goner.
Poor you,
Yeah.
you're bleeding into your head, and oh,
Okay.
that gentle, like nobody's rushing around going, okay, let's get the,
Yeah.
you
'Cause they
know,
think
like
you're a
they do
goner.
on TV.
Yeah.
Get the stuff.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
get the.
There's none of that
get
ER
the
stuff going
slam
on.
it on her stuff. They're just standing there going,
Oh, that's
poor
bad.
you.
That's
Yeah.
bad.
And you're going, why aren't you
getting the
get
stuff.
stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I'm a dead woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it felt okay, and I felt peaceful and serene, and like either thing would work out. But yet I really was sure that I wanted to live and be with my son. So I think it was a real choice for me.
I was lying down on my bed one night around 15 or 18 years ago. I had just had a terrific argument with my then wife. God rest her soul. She's celebrated her continuation day. And we had had some kind of a spat about nothing, really. Most spats are about nothing. Whose turn was it to take out the trash or whatever? But I was in a mood of upset, and so I was lying on my bed. I'd gone to bed quite early. I just slammed the door to the bedroom, and I was there just to get away from it all. And as I got into the bedroom, I realized, what am I going to do here? It's 7:45 at night. I'm not ready to go to sleep. I had no television in the bedroom, and as it happened, no reading material on that occasion. And I thought, well, boy, okay, well, I'll just try to go to sleep. So I turned the lights out. And I lie there in the semi-darkness of a 7:45 evening. And then I allowed myself to just let go of everything, because I remember thinking, why can't people just get along? Why is it so hard? I see now why nations can't get along with nations. And civilizations with civilizations, and cultures with cultures. I can't even get along with my own wife, who I love dearly. What does it take just to simply get along? And I remember feeling so sad about that. So I lied there in the bed, and it just sunk back into hopelessness, is how I would describe the moment. Sunk back into, what's the useness? And then I fell asleep as all the energy drained from me. But as I was falling asleep, I had the very clear experience, the very clear knowing that I was about to have the deepest sleep of my life. And instantly, I experienced myself being sucked off the bed. I've described this to close ones as the feeling that a fly might have if we saw the fly on some surface and managed to get a vacuum cleaner hose over that fly fast enough. And he'd say, okay, turn it on. And what that feeling that fly must have, if that were to happen, was how I felt. I felt literally sucked up off the bed. And suddenly, I looked down, and there I was on the bed. And I looked strange. I looked very strange. And I knew instantly that that was not me. And I thought, oh my. I thought all this while that I was that. And I remember thinking, but if I'm not that, then who am I? I was pulled out of the room, and I flew out of that room like lightning, just. And I was in fact in a tunnel. In fact, racing toward a light at the end of this tunnel. And I was going at some insane speed. Things were flying by me, just the shadows and the light falling in this tunnel so fast I knew I must be going a gazillion miles an hour. And finally I came out at the end of this tunnel-like environment, and I found myself in the presence of this light. It wasn't a point of light existing in a field of relative darkness. It was expansive light that existed everywhere, but it seemed to be brighter and hotter in the direct center, although it was everywhere. I could feel warmth, but not warmth in the physical sense. Just warmth the way when you feel warmly towards someone, that kind of warmth, emotional warmth. I could feel enormous emotional warmth and incredible peace. I was in the presence of this extraordinary light, and I remember feeling ashamed suddenly and embarrassed. Mind you, I was very clear in my sense of things that the shame and the embarrassment was not coming from another place. I didn't feel judged. What I felt was how you might feel if the Queen of England came to your door unexpectedly and the house was a mess. You know, and you normally have it pretty clean, but that moment wasn't one of those moments, and she came flouncing in, and she had no judgment about it, but she still is, after all, the Queen of England, and the house looks like a mess. And that was the first time I heard, I'm going to say I heard a thought. It wasn't a voice, it was a voiceless voice, but I did comprehend words. And the thought energy that I received was, you are perfect, just as you are. And I am so pleased with you. And I heard something astonishing. You must be told that you are incapable of doing anything bad or wrong. And my mind was working with that data, like, well, that's not my experience. I have done things bad or wrong. And the thought came back instantly. This is a process by which you simply become grander than you were before. You call this evolution. It is a process. It is simple. And it is utterly acceptable. And no one has ever been damaged by you, nor could anyone ever be. And I felt a sense of absolution in that moment. As I began to wonder about life and all that such a circumstance would bring up in an inquiring mind, I suddenly found myself in a different environment. In front of me were a million, cajillion, gazillion individual particles of light. There were particles of matter, I want to say like energy. They looked like a little amoeba. They were pulsating and, in a sense, blinking on and off. And they were all interconnected. The mosaic of interconnected units of energy. And as these interconnected units of energy blinked on and off, they changed shape. And as they changed shape, they changed color. And as they changed shape, the unit next to it changed shape, and that next to that, and next to that, so that what we had was a pulsating, kind of a vibrating, pulsating overall mass created by these individual particles that never lost connection with itself, but at the same moment maintained the individuality of each individual, each separate element. Now, there's something remarkable about this, because I saw, when I looked at this incredible jewelry of the universe, the greenest greens, the reddest reds, the bluest blues. And you have to understand the miracle here, because I happen to be colorblind. So I saw these colors, and I knew what they were. No one had to say, well, I know you've never seen this, but this is called green. I just knew. And I remember thinking, oh my, this is what people see on the earth. Oh my. I wanted to get closer to it. I felt a yearning, a deep yearning to move closer to this field of pulsating, vibrating, unspeakably beautiful energy. But as I moved toward it, as I tried to propel myself or move toward it, it moved away. Thinking, gosh, it was over here too. And when I looked over there, it was over there. And I realized that it was all around me. And as I realized it was all around me, I thought, well, maybe I'll sneak up on it. I couldn't maneuver faster than it. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get closer to it, yet I had a deep desire to move closer to it, to become one with it, actually. Again, this voice came to me, the voiceless voice of my own thoughts, and it said, you can no sooner get closer to that than you can move your eyes closer to your nose. As you move, it moves, for the very simple fact that you and it are one. And there's no disconnection. That is you. And so, of course, it moves with you. You are already where you are trying to be, submerged in the oneness. Simply experience it. And so I did.
I looked at that and I thought, is this the living waters? And then I seen a beautiful rose that was opening, much like this, to my delight, swaying in a melody that it created for God in its praise. And I wanted to become a part of that rose, to feel a part of it. And somehow, and I don't know how, but I was able to enter into that rose and become a part of it. And as I felt the love, this tremendous love for this rose.
I think I understand what you're saying, but you know how crazy this sounds.
Oh, I don't care.
Okay.
Let's be crazy.
Okay.
But as the rose opened up and became a part of the love that I had for it, it grew from my love for it. And that's how we are as human beings. We grow from the love that we receive from other people.
Absolutely.
All right, here comes Betty Eadie. She's written a new book called The Ripple Effect, and we're going to talk all about it. Betty Eadie's phenomenal New York Times #1 bestseller, of over 10 million copies, that's a lot of books, folks, Embraced by the Light and The Awakening Heart touched millions of lives who seek release from their fear of death. At 31 years of age, Betty Eadie died in a hospital after surgery, experienced the most profound near-death experience ever. She reveals in her experiences in heaven, including meeting Jesus, the presence of angels, being reunited with departed loved ones, the power of prayer, and more. Embraced by the Light, her first book, is actually one of the all-time bestsellers in the history of books. How's that? Anyway, she knew upon returning that she was to share the experience at the appropriate time, and the message of God's unconditional love would reach around the world. That message went out in 1992 with the publication of Embraced by the Light, and was increased and amplified by The Awakening Heart. The message now ripples out to millions, who in turn share the power of God's love with others. This is the ripple effect at its finest, creating waves of positive energy that are full of love, going forward into one that love will be experienced by all.
And of course I had the quite natural thought, gee, I wonder if I look as beautiful to it as it does to me. Of course I already knew the answer intuitively. And the awareness of my own beauty was not felt by me as on earth when someone told me something nice about myself, a little feeling of pride, or it was just a feeling of, yes, of course. It's all that beautiful. How could I have ever seen ugliness anywhere, in anyone, in anything, least of all in me? Immediately when I came to that awareness, I was again shifted and changed into yet another location. But there I was in front of a huge book, which I understood to be the book of knowledge. The Akashic Records, the Book of Wisdom, whatever you want to call it. It was a huge book. I remember looking at this enormous book. And I recall as I opened the book, or actually I had no hands, but I would just kind of like think of a hand opening the book, and an invisible hand opened the book. And on one page, the type was so tiny that I realized that there's probably all the data in all the encyclopedias of the world on that single page. And the book must have had 5 billion pages like that. And I thought, wow, what am I looking at? And my friend, the voice, came back again and said, you really wanted to know, you've yearned to know for so long. And your yearning has been pure. It wasn't for ego reasons or to make yourself better than. Your soul simply yearned to know. We see that you have just wanted to know. You've yearned so long. Here already, here. Here's the answer to everything. And with that, it was as if somebody went, and the pages from the gentlest breeze just went from first page to last of this enormous book. And as each page passed, I absorbed every piece of data on every page until the book closed just that fast, and suddenly I knew. And I knew that I knew all there was to know about everything. And I remember thinking, how simple, how elegantly, unbelievably simple it all is. The whole system, life, everything. And I just sat there, if you please, in my non-body, just contemplating the beauty of the utter simplicity of it. And then I was suddenly back in my body. Knowing what I know now, I could never be afraid of death. Not even a little bit. And there's a wonderful benefit to that, of course, because when you're no longer afraid of dying, you're no longer afraid of living. And it makes every moment so rich and so deep and so extraordinarily exciting. Even when things are not going well by someone's definition, even when outcomes are not presenting themselves in the way you wish they would have, even when you're in a place of apprehension or fear. I have come to a new acronym for fear: feeling excited and ready. And what I would say to someone who is dying is, you are going to go through a marvelous process of re-identification. Death is a process of re-identification. And the following things will happen. First, you will come to know instantly that you are not your body. Second, which will be, by the way, a great relief to you. Second, you will come to know instantly that you are not your mind, which will be, by the way, a great relief to you. And you'll come to know that because you'll start thinking about what you're thinking about. And suddenly, that which you imagine to be your mind will be stepping aside from your mind. And then a part of you will say, I'm sorry, who's thinking about my thoughts if I'm not my thoughts? Then who is the thinker? And at that point, it will dawn on you. I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my mind. I am that which has thoughts, but I am not even my thoughts. Therefore, I must be, I guess, what they all call a soul. I guess they're right, I am a soul. But then a third part of this process will take place. You'll come to realize you're not even a soul in the sense of being an essence that's individuated or somehow separated from anything else. You will in fact be individuated, even as my fingers are individuated, but you will not be separated any more than my fingers are separated from my hand and my hand from my body. You will therefore remember that as you'll become a member once again of the body of God, of all that is. And you will have an experience of that, not a knowingness, not a sense of it, not a conceptualization. You will actually experience it. I know I've been there. I've experienced it. And you will know experientially, my gosh, there's only one thing. And all things are part of the only thing there is. You will be reunited with all of your loved ones, all those who have gone before, and those you think you're leaving behind. Now that person might say, oh, you mean even the people that I've left behind, my grandchildren and my... Yes, even those people will meet you on the other side at the moment that you do what you would call crossover. The person might think, well, oh my gosh, I don't want that to happen. I don't want them to have to end their lives just because I'm ending mine. What are you telling me? To which I would answer, no, they haven't ended their lives. They've lived their lives fully and completely. Then I don't have to wait for them on the other side for them to finish living their lives? You would have to wait for them if there was such a thing as time. But actually there's not. So in the eternal when-where, they will be there. And when you do the thing called crossover, when you experience your continuation day, you will therefore be reunited instantaneously with all those human beings you have so deeply loved. The souls, the essence of all of them. And we will be together again saying, now that was fun. Let's do it again.